everybody, and welcome to this session of A Very Thermomix Christmas. Today we are going to be making snacks for Santa. Of course you could make the traditional mince pies. We're going to cover that in a later video. So instead today I'm going to show you 3 different biscuits that you could offer to Santa. These are great biscuits because you can make them in advance, and they can also double up as stocking fillers or gifts for your friends or family. So we are going to start today with a gluten-free gingerbread biscuit, which to be honest is one of my favorite biscuits this time of year. It's so festive, all the spices, the cinnamon, the nutmeg. I think it's just a wonderful biscuit, and it's great fun to decorate with the kids as well. So I've got my recipe here, and we are going to start with grinding our almonds. So this is a gluten-free recipe, and the base of it is a mixture of gluten-free plain flour and ground almonds. So we'll start by grinding that at speed 10. It's going to be very loud. There we go. And we have our wonderful ground almonds, just like that. You've got almond flour. So I'm going to transfer it into this bowl. Okay. Now for our ginger, I'm using stem ginger in syrup, and I've drained it, so the syrup is not in there, but I've set some aside for later on in the recipe. So our ginger is going in here. There is another gingerbread biscuit recipe on Cookie Dough, which is not gluten-free. It uses crystallized ginger, so the flavor is not quite as strong. I personally prefer this one, even though I don't eat gluten-free. All I do is I just use plain flour instead of the gluten-free flour. So that is an option as well. Okay, so we've got our ginger in, and we are going to just chop it. So that's my ginger, all chopped lovely and sticky. It smells wonderful actually. And I'm just going to transfer that to the bowl with the almonds. And again, I don't need to clean the bowl because everything's going to come back in here anyway. Okay. Now we've got our butter and light brown sugar. There we go. And we're just going to mix that. Okay. So you may have noticed when I poured my sugar out just now, it did come out in a large lump. Sugar, as soon as any moisture gets into it, will all stick together. I obviously pre-prepared my ingredients, so it's been sat out a little bit and it clumped together, but actually it doesn't matter because the speed of the blades, the power of the blades has meant that I've still got this lovely creamy texture with the butter straight from the fridge, and that sugar all in a lump. It hasn't made any difference at all. And then we've got our egg, the syrup from the stem ginger, and we mix it. And then finally we have flour, the almond mixture, salt, and all our spices. So I've got in here my flour. There's also in this recipe ½ teaspoon of xanthan gum. It's probably not something that everybody has in their kitchen cupboard unless you do regularly bake gluten-free goods. All it does is it acts as a binding agent. It helps to keep your gluten-free bakes, make them sort of stick together. It sort of acts as a bit of a thickener, really. If you don't have it, could you make it without it? Probably yes. But your results will be just a little bit better if you do have xanthan gum. And if you're regularly baking gluten-free goods anyway, it is a useful thing to have in the kitchen. I've got my baking powder in here. I'm using gluten-free baking powder. Do be aware that not all baking powder is gluten-free, so do check the packaging. And then I've got cinnamon, nutmeg, and cloves. So lovely Christmassy spices there. And then I'm going to mix it again. Okay. And that is my dough all ready. All I'm going to do is tip it out. The recipe says to shape it in a disc and wrap it in cling film. I've just got a bowl and I'm just going to cover it with some beeswax wrap because we're trying to reduce how much cling film we use. It doesn't really make any difference. You just need to make sure that it's covered, really. And then that's going to go in the fridge for 30 minutes. Whilst it's in the fridge, it's just going to firm up a bit. If you look at the mixture now, I can make it into a dough and I will be able to roll it. But if I just put it in the fridge for 30 minutes, it's just going to make it a little bit firmer, especially if your butter isn't particularly cold, and then that will just help to make it a bit easier to shape once you've shaped it. Once you cut it, it'll be easier to transfer onto the tray without it sort of becoming sort of quite distorted gingerbread people. And pop that in the fridge. And I will see you in 30 minutes. Okay, so I have my gingerbread biscuit dough from the fridge, and it is lovely and firm, so it's going to be a bit easier for me to work with. It makes quite a lot of biscuits, so I'm just going to take a portion of the dough to start with, and I'm just going to roll it out on a lightly floured surface until it's about 5 millimeters thick. You can use any shape cutters that you like. I've got snowman here. You can do your traditional gingerbread person. You can do stars, Christmas trees, whatever you've got at home, or even just round biscuits if you like, because we're going to decorate them with royal icing. So actually a round one, you could decorate it like it was a Christmas bauble. So you don't need any particular cookie cutter. If you don't have any cookie cutters, just use an upside down glass to get your round cookies. I am going to re-roll my trimmings, make sure that I get as many biscuits as I can out of these. They are going on my baking tray and I will pop them in the oven, which is preheating at the moment at 170 degrees. Okay, so here I've got my gingerbread biscuits. I've tried to ice them. I most definitely am not any kind of patisserie chef or cake decorator. I'm going to pretend my kid did this, but to be honest, they're actually quite cute. You can decorate them however you want, also depending on whatever shapes you've cut, and they've come out lovely and golden and they smell incredible. You do want your biscuits to cool before you ice them, otherwise your icing will just melt all over the place. So now all I need is someone to help me taste them, and I've got Debbie from customer care who's going to come and help me taste these.
Hi, Terri.
Hi Debbie.
Oh, those look amazing.
Do you want to have a try?
I will, thank you.
I'm going to have a try too.
Mmm, delicious. Where did you find the recipe?
So this is a recipe that is already on Cookie Doo. This recipe is in our gluten-free Christmas collection. Could you tell that it's gluten-free?
No, not at all. It's too delicious.
Great, I'm glad you enjoy it.
Thank you, Terri.
That's all right.
I'll take this back to my desk.
Okay. So do check out the collection on Cookie Doo. There's a range of stuff like a gluten-free Christmas cake, bread sauce, all kinds of gluten-free options that you can have a go at. And of course, like I said, you can make these even if you're not on a gluten-free diet. They are still delicious. Sorry, I've got crumbs around my mouth. So next we are going to make cinnamon stars. Okay, so our next recipe today is cinnamon stars. These are a traditional German biscuit during the festive season, and they come from our Cookie Doo collection, Christmas Around the World. So we're going to start just by making icing sugar. I've got my sugar in there, and I'm just going to grind it. And there we have our lovely powdered sugar. I'm just going to transfer it to a bowl and set that aside. So next I've got sugar and 2 cinnamon sticks. So there's my sugar and my cinnamon sticks. And then I'm just going to grind this. So all I'm really doing is making a cinnamon sugar. The Thermomix is wonderful because you can make all kinds of flavored sugars. It's quite nice to have them pre-made, particularly things like vanilla sugar. You can get lovely vanilla pods, grind it with your sugar, put it in an airtight jar, and then it will keep for ages. Then you can use that wonderful vanilla sugar instead of adding vanilla extract to your bakes, and it will add a wonderful aroma without needing to use the shop bought stuff. You can also make lemon sugar, you can use lemon peel, you can use orange, you can experiment with all kinds of flavors and spices depending on what it is that you ordinarily like to bake. So I'm just going to grind my cinnamon sugar. Okay, and I had 2 whole cinnamon sticks in there, and you can see that they're completely ground now into a fine powder. Oh, and that smells very cinnamony, very festive. Okay, now I'm just going to transfer this to another bowl. Now these biscuits are actually gluten-free, and so the base of our biscuit is almond flour. 500 grams of almonds in there. Okay, and hopefully you can see there that we've got our almond flour. So I've got my ground almonds, and I need to add my cinnamon sugar. We're going to grind again. And then finally, we've got 2 teaspoons of honey here for a bit of sweetness, and my egg whites. And that's just going to bind my mixture together. And we're just mixing. Okay. And here we have our mixture. You can see it is quite firm in the middle, but it still does have crumbly bits on top. So I just need to transfer this to a bowl and then knead it by hand. Okay, so all I've done is remove my dough from the mixing bowl into a larger bowl, because as you can see, it's sort of in clumps, but it's not a cohesive dough. As I was doing it, towards the bottom, there are parts where it becomes quite firm, and it can be a little bit difficult to get out with a spatula, in which case, all you need to do is tip it upside down and twist the mixing knife like this, and it'll loosen up whatever's around the mixing knife, and then you can use your spatula and scoop the rest of it out, and super easy. Okay, so all we're going to do is just bring it together into a dough. Okay, I'm going to set this aside, and then I'm going to make our glaze. During this time, I need to preheat my oven. It's already preheated at 150 degrees, and line my baking trays. I've got here a clean mixing bowl because I wouldn't be able to get all of the residue of the dough out before I make my glaze. And if I put my glaze straight in it, then it's going to have lots of bits in it. So all I need is my egg white and the icing sugar that I made earlier. We're just going to mix. Okay, so there we have our glaze. You should be able to see it's lovely, white and thick like a syrup. Okay, so I've got some of my dough here. We do this in batches because there is quite a lot of dough. So I've just taken one small piece, pressed it together to make myself a ball, and I'm going to roll it out between 2 pieces of baking paper. You can use baking paper, you can use cling film, it doesn't matter, but you do need to use that so that it doesn't stick. You don't want to be flouring your surface because, as you can see, it's already quite a dry mixture. If we're adding more flour as we roll on the surface, it's just going to make it drier and it won't hold together. We've got just enough sort of eggs and honey to hold this together, and so all I've got is 2 pieces of baking paper, and we need to roll about 6 to 8 millimeters thick, and I think that's going to be a nice thickness for me there. I'll remove the top layer of paper, and I've got star cutters. You don't have to do stars, you can use any shape cutter you want. And any size you want, really, it doesn't really matter. And I'm going to cut out my stars. So there we go. There are my stars, and I will pop a couple of these on my baking tray. Then what I'm going to do is take my glaze, which is in my mixing bowl, and then just brush the biscuits with the glaze. So I'm going to do that with the rest of my dough and my glaze, fill up my baking trays, and then pop them in the oven. They will go in the oven for 12 to 14 minutes until they're cooked. So I'll see you then. Okay, so I have my cinnamon stars out of the oven. If you have a look, they are lovely. They kind of look a little bit like meringue on top, which I guess is basically what it is. It's egg whites and sugar. And now all I need is a taste tester. So I'm going to invite Ben. Ben, do you want to try a biscuit?
I always want to try a biscuit. What have we got?
We have cinnamon stars. Okay. So they're made with predominantly almond flour.
Okay.
Well, you try it and see what you think. I'm going to try one too.
Yeah, those are good. I like the chewy crunchiness. See, do you have a box?
A box?
Yeah. For me to take them in.
You can take the whole tray if you like.
Well, can I actually? I'm taking them.
Yeah, go for it. Okay, so these are absolutely wonderful. They have a lovely texture, a little bit chewy. Because the almonds aren't sort of completely ground, you get a little bit of texture from the almonds as well, so it's not a completely smooth biscuit, but I actually quite like that. The cinnamon is just right, and it's so festive, and it's got that lovely shine on top as well, so it looks lovely and delicate. The recipe makes about 60 of these. If you want to, you can halve it if you don't want to make quite so many, or because it's quite a workout on your arms when you're rolling, the other thing that you can do is just use larger cookie cutters. I use quite small ones because I think these are quite cute, but you can use slightly larger ones, and then it's not quite such a workout on your arms. So those are our cinnamon stars. You can find the recipe on Cookie Doo, and next we're going to make plum Christmas wheels. Okay, so for our final recipe today, we are making plum Christmas wheels. I've already pre-made my dough. I don't think I need to show you how to do that again, but just to briefly explain, it's got orange peel in here, so I basically made an orange icing sugar, and then I added my butter and eggs, creamed it all together so it was lovely and smooth, and then finally added my dry ingredients, mixed it all in the Thermomix, and it's been sitting in the fridge for about 45 minutes. When it came out of the Thermomix, it was quite a soft dough, which is why it does need to go in the fridge before I roll it, so it's just going to be easier to work with. I'm going to show you just very quickly how to make one of these. They are actually much easier to make than they look, and are very effective. If you're not sure when you read the instructions if you're doing it right, what I recommend you do, what I did just now actually, was just cut a square of paper and then cut the paper according to the instructions in the recipe, and then fold it and see if it looks right, and then you'll be able to get an idea of exactly what you need to be doing. So all I'm doing is rolling it out on my floured surface, and I'm going to cut a square. How big you do it is up to you. The recipe says about 6 centimeters. I'm going to do mine ever so slightly larger, just because I like a bigger biscuit. Okay, so I've got my square. I'm just going to make sure that my surface is floured enough so that when I come to removing it, I don't get stuck. There we go. I've got my square of dough, and I'm just going to put a small dollop, so about 3/4 of a teaspoon, in the middle of my dough. There we go. And then all you need to do is cut from each of the corners into the middle where your jam is. So I've got 1, 2, I've got quite a long knife for this, 3, and then the last one, 4. Okay, and then all you need to do is take one corner and fold it in from each of these 4 sides. So then I've got another one here. I'm gonna leave this corner, take the next corner, fold it in until it's just touching the jam. On the left hand side, folding it in again until it's just touching the jam. And then I've got my final corner folded in. There we go. And then we have it. There's my pinwheel. As I said, if you're not sure, try it out with a piece of paper first. I'm going to make all of mine up, and then I've got my oven preheating at the moment at 180 degrees, and so I'll pop these in when they're ready. Okay, so I have my Christmas wheels out of the oven. They were in there for about 15 minutes. As I said before, I'm not a pastry chef. They're not the most delicate looking biscuits, but if you spent a little bit more time just being a little bit more careful, they would be absolutely beautiful. But even sort of with my rough and ready pattern, they actually do look very effective. They're a lovely golden colour, and the jam has kind of spread out a little bit, gone a little bit sticky and gooey, so I'm really looking forward to tasting it. Just be aware that when you are making it, towards the end, whilst I was making the last few biscuits, the dough started warming up a bit, so it's worth doing it maybe in batches. Take a little bit of the dough to work with, put the rest back in the fridge whilst you're working with it, because the longer it's out of the fridge, also depending on your room temperature, your dough is going to get warmer and softer and harder to work with. So towards the end, they got a little bit sloppier just because my dough was getting a little bit too soft, but I was much too greedy and wanted to get them into the oven quickly so that I could taste them. So I've got Nuala with me today from Customer Care, who is going to join me and try one of my biscuits. Hi Nuala.
Hi. Well, I have to say they look very pretty. They do look nice.
I tried my best.
No, they're very appetising.
Do you want to tuck in
Yeah,
and let me know what you
see what you
think? I'm going to try one too. I'm going to try a bit from the middle with the jam.
They're very Moorish. It'd be nice with a nice cup of tea.
They would, definitely. Would you be happy to receive something like that as a gift at Christmas?
I think they'd make nice Christmas gifts.
Good.
Really tasty.
I'm glad you enjoy it.
Lovely, thank you.
Okay, no worries.
I'm going to take this back to my desk.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, the biscuit is really short. It's a really lovely biscuit, really crumbly. You can see it's all sort of sticking in my mouth. And the jam in the middle is really lovely and sticky. That is all for today. So thank you for joining me, and we will see you next time when we'll be doing Christmas party food.